What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys a nice little nifty little build that I'm just going to collectively refer to as Stealth Archer. Now, Stealth Archer was originally pretty much the only way to play an archer that felt decent, and even then was not great, because Marksman was kind of meh in the original game. However, now, with the way that they changed a lot of the perks and the added strengths they added to Marksman, and a nifty little bug that we are going to be messing around with today, you can be very potent as a stealth-based archer. But before we get into that, let's talk about the things that you're going to want to do for this character. The race pretty much doesn't matter. I went with a Bosmer for thematics, but you don't really need anything specifically. I would say just steer away from Orc, because if I remember correctly, the Berserk ability gives you like a -100 to your agility stat, which actually matters for some of the weapons we're going to be using, because agility was changed to buff the damage of short swords, daggers, and bows now. So it's best to steer away from that if you intend to use the abilities. But other than that, just pick your favorite. Now, once we enter into the tutorial here, you're just going to want to either go through normally or take advantage of a little nifty thing I posted about in my most recent video before this, but that is taking advantage of how sneaking works and how to train it. Walk into this corner for a little bit. Once you have gained enough sneak to be happy with what's going on, the only thing you absolutely need from the build is sneak attacks being a lot deadlier. I like doing this before getting a class because then I'm not super over leveled for later. I'm doing this right now, and then now, let's get to the rest. While you're being chased around by a couple angry rats, pick up a bow, pick up some arrows, and our favorite tool, a trusty old iron dagger. Realistically, I want you to keep in mind for all damage, this will be on a depth difficulty, so everything will be taking 1-to-1 damage. Main important part of this is you're gonna want your shortcuts to have your bow be number 1 and any dagger in slot 2. I just accidentally pulled up the console. And now we fully immerse ourselves in the setup. So, the way we're going to be taking care of this is we're going to take advantage of how absolutely abysmally slow the arrows fire in this game to fire an arrow, and while the arrow is in the air, we swap to a dagger. I forgot to equip the arrows. So, let's see how this works. As you can see up in the top left there, sneak attack for 8 times damage on a bow and arrow. I'm not sure if you're fully aware of this, but Marksman arrow damage should only stack up to ×3 from sneak, meaning something has gone colossally wrong in the calculation to tell the game that that was 8 times damage. In addition, for some reason, they have made it so that in the unmodded base game, you recover all arrows that you fire. And in cases where you're forced to fight, you should be carried by your agility and your speed. I am playing with a mod that makes it so arrows are less common, but I do want you to know, if you've watched the video that I posted previously, which if you haven't, I'll link it right here, then you will end up being aware that you can technically farm your combat skills in the tutorial. I did not mention Marksman there because I had not fully thought about the ramifications of getting all arrows back when you kill something. You can get to 100 Marksman before ever leaving the sewers. In fact, you can get there before ever entering the sewers. While you're still in the prison here, you can get to 100 Marksman. And that's simply because you get your arrows back every time you kill one of the assassins towards the end. And you start out with like almost 100, I think, by the time you get out of the tutorial. Maybe it caps out at like 50, I don't remember. Yeah, so as you can see, we've got about 90-something arrows now. Aim for my life. That one worked as well, otherwise we wouldn't have killed him. Yeah, so as you can see, we're one-shotting pretty much everything down here. I'm going to turn it up to expert and see how this does. There is some merit in farming up your light armor here, which for this specific build, I'll just show you how to do it real quick. I have a video on all of these in full that I've linked earlier, but still, if you're interested in wanting your skills to be as good as possible here, on expert, these guys aren't really much of a challenge either. So once you pull the rope out for these guys, they immediately become able to be hostile. So if you dump your difficulty down to novice, and then hop in with them. I recommend, if you're also going to want to do block, you unequip your weapons. And you can increase your block and your light armor or heavy armor at the same time. And then basically just keep going until you fully max out these skills. I'm not really going for blocks, so I'm gonna put my hands down. I'll just skip to when I'm done doing this. I'm only gonna do it to like 25 just to show it works. All right, once you hit 25 or whatever level you want to be, I think at level 75, they made it so that you get an ability that makes it so they don't hinder you as much, so you should move a little bit quicker. I think the most simple ones here are going to be the Thief or the Steed, realistically. I like the Thief because a little thing that luck does, just so you're fully aware, is that for every, I think, 10 points over 50 that your luck stat is, it increases all of your skills by 4. I'm pretty sure that's the math. So if you were to take this and then later take the extra +5 from your class, then you can actually start out with a bunch of bonuses to your skill. It doesn't show it in paper, but it's there in the math and in the calculations the game does. In addition to that, luck does a couple of other pretty cool things. So I like taking the guaranteed flat amounts of luck, but as of right now, I'm not a big fan of increasing it level to level because it costs, I think, 4 points to level luck once, whereas every other skill is 1-to-1, which I think that's just a better ratio on those other skills, or rather other stats. So I'm going to be going Thief here. Some other pretty good ones are the Lord for some resilience, and if you're planning on focusing to be anti-magic, the Astronaut can be pretty funny too. This is the room I'm referring to. What you would want to do is turn the difficulty all the way down to novice. Wait for them to go into the side passage. Don't follow the Emperor in there, just let him be. And then once the enemies start spawning in this room, they will never stop spawning until you walk in there. You are probably more likely to crash your game than they are to stop spawning. So feel free to spawn whatever you can in here. So you basically just walk here. Let's see. Correctly. There we go. You trigger that. You come back out. I believe you can do this as well. Yeah, you can. You can just sit here. And assuming you have ranged, you just keep shooting at them. They also will usually ignore you. And even though they're telling you to go to the Emperor, you don't actually have to worry too much about that. I would say go with stealth, then go with agility and luck. I think blade's not bad to take. Neither would be athletics, realistically. You definitely want light armor and marksman. I think sneak can be pretty nice as well. If you want, throw some acrobatics in there. For magic, you 100% want restoration. You can also throw in some destruction if you'd like, and if you want to try and use conjured enemies to distract the people you're trying to murder, you can use conjuration too. Either way, this is what I'll be going with. You can go with some pretty different stuff. Realistically, your major skills don't matter too much anymore. A big thing to keep in mind is the more easy to level major skills you have, the more likely you are to level quickly, which leveling in the remaster is much faster than original, so keep that in mind. Also, it can be pretty nice to level up skills that are based around your build. So we can just call this Stealth Archer, and here we are, good to go. All right, I'll see you guys once we're level 10. All right, gamers, so once you have reached level 10 through whatever means you want, I just spam leveled a few of the skills that I will be using the most, namely Marksman Sneak Acrobatics. I barely messed with anything else. And then you don't really need any better weapons or anything. I didn't even change armor. I just looted a guard that I got murdered. You basically want to now go for an item called the Khajiit Ring. Now, you are level 10, and it is the remaster. So, you should probably have around 100 agility and speed by now, and a decent amount of endurance. Now, the way that you're going to want to do Meridius Quest is it's going to be over by Skingrad, roughly around here, I believe. So we're going to go to the stables and we're going to run there. Once you have spoken to one of the individuals at Meridius Shrine, you will be asked to bring an offering of an undead creature's corpse. I remember at some point I thought bone meal would work. I went and got some, came back, and it didn't work. So I guess the next easiest thing would be ectoplasm, which is basically just a drop from any of the ghosts you would find in the area, or you could potentially buy it at a shop. Once you After the ectoplasm, you get a little voice line from Meridia. This offers you a much more straightforward quest, which is to go and murder a bunch of necromancers in a cave. Alright, so I'm in the Howling Cave. Our main goal here is to kill necromancers and undead. I have pretty much nothing in the form of gear, so let's see how this goes. Adept, you can pretty easily one-shot each of the individual necromancers, especially using the good old little buff here. Take whatever you want from them. Loot their summons too if you'd like. Get a better dagger. The quality of your dagger doesn't really matter a whole lot. The compass in here pretty much tells you where all the necromancers are. This guy's the last one. So now I just run back. Once you speak to Meridia, you get the Ring of Khajiit, which is pretty sweet, not gonna lie. By putting it on, so the big thing here is speed and Chameleon. The Chameleon makes you pretty hard to spot, and if you just get a couple more items with Chameleon on it, just from Oblivion gates or anything of that sort from the sigil stones, you can end up at nearly 100% Chameleon really quickly, and at that point, you're extremely difficult to see. And then for more upfront combats, for when your sneak fails or what have you, having 110 speed is really, really nice. As you can see, we move around extremely quickly, even though we are not sprinting. And when you are sprinting, you will be able to move faster than vanilla horses pretty easily. You should also be able to sneak a bit better in plain sight. So that is pretty much quintessentially the build, is me wanting to showcase that little funny bug. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. Tell me what kind of builds you'd like to see in the future. I know I'm already thinking of doing a sort of pugilist style unarmed build that I had pretty much set up for already. Even though unarmed is not the best in this game, it can still be pretty potent and it can be very fun to use. So I'll hit you guys with something like that next time, and peace gamers.